Hello and welcome to the Metal Pack Pod, the industry's leading podcast for the global metal packaging market. The Metal Pack Pod is brought to you by the Metal Packager, the number one digital resource for the global metal packaging market. With over 8,000 monthly users in over 150 countries globally, be sure to check us out on metalpackager.com. I'm your host Alex Fordham, and in today's special roundtable episode, we welcome three of Sherwin Williams' senior management team to discuss some of the pressing issues in the can coating space, including recent EU draft regulation on bisphenols in food contact and how Sherwin's valPure V70 non-BPA epoxy technology is preparing the industry for this legislation. During the episode, we speak to Donald Lee, the Global Household Products Marketing Director, Michael Sawayda, Global Beverage Marketing Director for Sherwin Williams Packaging Coatings Division, and Lynn Grega, Vice President, Global Compliance and Technology Marketing at Sherwin Williams. Please do like and share our podcast. It really is appreciated, and we hope you enjoy this episode, everybody. So, good morning, guys. How are you? Looking forward to an interesting conversation about the latest developments of Sherwin Williams. I know we've got some interesting subject matter to discuss, not least in Europe. And I'm very eager to kind of get a behind-the-scenes track about what Sherwin Williams are doing to prepare for the EU legislation that is set to come in November. But probably a nice place to start for our listeners who aren't quite as well acquainted with the company is just to provide a nice little overview. So who'd like to begin here? I think, Michael, you're probably the best person to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I'll start us off. So Sherwin Williams, we were founded in 1866 by two gentlemen, Henry A. Sherwin and Edward P. Williams, hence the name. And again, that was back in 1866. So fast forward 155 years later, a little bit more, and we're now at about 64,000 employees. We're active in 120 different countries. And generally, though, everyone knows the paint stores. You see them quite often, especially here in the U.S. We are organized into three different groups. One is, of course, the paint store groups. We have somewhere between 48 and 4,900 stores. All of those are company owned, and again, you see those quite often here in the U.S. But we also have two other divisions. One is our consumer brands, and a lot of people are very familiar with some of those brands, such as Thompson's, Water Seal, Midwax, things that are trusted and you see out there every day in the marketplace. But then our third group is our performance coatings group, and that's our business-to-business industrial coatings group, which serves those a variety of businesses. There are 6 divisions within our performance coatings group, or otherwise known as PCG. We have manufacturing labs all around the world supporting can makers and brands wherever you go around the world. And that's the general background.
Thanks very much for that very succinct overview, and I appreciate that. And there's probably a question for Don or Lynn, really, in terms of the packaging sector. I assume the complexities involved with legislation, which we can get onto shortly, must mean that it's a fairly complex area.
Yeah, that's definitely correct, Alex. There's a lot of end uses to consider. There's a lot of different global regions layered on top of that, which makes it complex.
That's great. And Don, anything to add there before we move on to another subject?
No, I think Lynn hit it very well. All regions have different requirements. And at Sherwin Williams, our job is to make sure that we're meeting the local legislation, meeting the federal legislation, and meeting our customer needs driven by brands and or can makers.
No, that's brilliant stuff. And in terms of, obviously, we've had some fairly significant developments coming out of Europe recently, and just reading in my research notes with regards to the EU and the WTO and the draft regulation on the use of BPA and other bisphenols. Obviously, this has been a subject matter certainly since I've been in the industry for the last 15 years or so. It's always been a subject matter hotly debated at the various trade shows globally. But it seems like the proposals which intend to be adopted in November 2024 are pretty significant. So if we could have perhaps just a brief overview of the proposed legislation and what this means for, one, the industry, and then two, Sherwin Williams. So apologies there. There's kind of a loaded 3 questions there, but I think it's kind of a matter I'd like to dig into in a little bit more detail. So who'd like to take this one?
So, Alex, I can start with giving you an overview of what is happening with this. Essentially, it's a European ban on bisphenol A, BPA. So on June 12th, the EU member states approved the European Commission's proposal to ban BPA for food contact materials. The EU Parliament and Council now has a 3-month scrutiny period that is running from July to September to review and raise any objections. And then the ban should be formally adopted by the Commission in November of this year, and then it will enter into force at the end of 2024. Of note are that the regulation contains the following points. It bans the intentional use of BPA and its salts for food contact materials. That includes varnishes and coatings. It bans the use of other bisphenols and their derivatives. That's with harmonized classification as CMR. CMR is carcinogenic, mutagenic, reproductive hazard, category 1A, 1B, or endocrine disruptive 1 for food contact materials, unless the risk has been assessed and authorized by a competent authority. After that, there's a transition period of 18 months from entry into force for empty beverage and food cans, and 36 months for empty cans for processed fruits, vegetables, and fish products, seasonal type products, if you will. The transition periods end June 2026 and December 2027, respectively. There's a transition period of 36 months from entry into force for removal of BPA from exterior metal packaging for food for empty cans. Those are coatings that are not in direct contact with the food or beverage. That transition period will end December 2027. And then there's an additional 12 months that are allowed to fill the cans and put them on the market. There will be no withdrawal of packaged foods already on the market. So what this means for our industry is that we need to transition away from any BPA-based coatings that are on the market. I think it's important to know that one of the products that we're most proud of that is very innovative, it's our V70 technology. It is not impacted by this regulation. Now, one of the starting monomers for our valPure V70 is a chemical called TMBPFDGE. It's tetramethyl bisphenol F diglycidyl ether, and it has bisphenol in it. So some have been concerned that we could be categorized as one of these other bisphenols that are of concern. We are not. This is a product that we have studied very extensively, and we have shown it to be biologically differentiated from other bisphenols. It was developed with that in mind. It is not impacted by this regulation. By the letter of the law, it is not classified. It is not CLP classified as mutagenic, carcinogenic, hazardous to human health, or endocrine disruptive. Additionally, it's been reviewed and authorized by an EU member state authority, and that would be the Dutch G4 Commission, who approved it for food contact use. So that's what we're seeing happening. Big news globally with regard to the regulations, especially bisphenol regulations, what the European Union is doing.
Thanks very much for that comprehensive overview there. No, really, really interesting. I think I've got a couple of questions there. I know the EU aren't necessarily known for perhaps getting things done quickly. So pardon the pun here, but do you think the can will get kicked down the road for in the short term, or do you think these deadlines are in place will be stuck to? And the secondary to that as well is what's the overall Sherwin Williams position on this? You guys broadly in favour? I know we could get on to shortly some of your innovations within the non-intent bisphenol area, but it'd just be nice to get a general overview, company position, and also what that means in terms of whether the EU essentially get done what they've said in time.
So I believe that these are the dates that will come to fruition. It's my opinion that the European Union has given us some forewarning of this so that we could be well prepared. Mike and Dawn, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. And yeah, Sherwin Williams is well prepared, right? So we know these changes are coming from a sunset date perspective, but prior to that, we know these brands and regulations have been giving us indication we need to react, and we have a lot of non-BPA solutions already in the marketplace. They've been evaluated by customers and brands. We're commercial with a lot of non-BPA technologies, so we're ready for if and when the regulations impact not only Europe but globally.
And that's a nice point there that Michael, perhaps you'll take that up in terms of obviously we're covering EU legislation here. Is it a case of the rest of the world will follow, or is it going to be a case of slightly more complex than that?
I think it'll be more complex than that, Alex. I think the rest of the world is watching what the EU is doing, and I think some folks will, some countries, some brands will follow. I think there are others who will, look at their region and decide that they are still okay to use BPA coatings. But but we have offerings that, as Don said, that are commercial today, that work very well for the interior. I think what else is interesting about the European legislation is the fact that the exteriors will also be moving. Like Don said, we've been selling interior non-BPA coatings for a number of years now, and the industry has been using those. But the exteriors is another area of movement that already can makers and brands are getting prepared for and qualifying alternatives, and that's another area that we're well prepared for.
No, that's great. That's great. That's good to know. And I'm just curious from, I mean, the challenge for us as a trade publications, we have to have hats in many different areas, so we need to know a little bit about everything. And it's always this subject is always something that fascinates me in terms of the science behind it. And I just, from my perspective, I'm interested in the fact of these technologies that you have at disposal now. Are they the equivalent to the epoxies that have been around for many years? Is the performance, are we there yet in terms of offering that support to your customers, or are we still some way away from kind of matching that kind of technology? I mean, who'd be interested in taking that question up?
It's a great question, and I think we've shown that we do meet the performance requirements of the marketplace, and we're meeting the requirements just as we did with epoxy. I think even though a lot of the focus right now is on Europe because of the pending legislation and the changes there, especially in the food side of the business, North America has been largely non-BPA for many years now, and has been very successful with that. I think we have that example. And as the legislation in Europe comes through, and that broadens the conversion from BPA usage to non-BPA, I think we'll see the same thing there. I think we've got good solutions that will meet the needs just as epoxy did for many years.
Yeah, Mike, if I can add to that, absolutely. We have products that perform, but we also have products that I think that give the can maker an edge in terms of application performance, right? So I think they're looking at both a combination of meeting the performance needs as well being as efficient as they can from a plant perspective.
And that's interesting to know performance wise, but in terms of costs, is the cost requirements greater as a result, and are they passed on to down the supply chain in terms of onto your customers, and then subsequently the cost will then the consumer will then bear the brunt, or is the technology involved favouring fairly well in terms of from a cost perspective? Sorry to put you guys on the spot, but it's good to unpack these issues, because I know costs throughout the supply chain are increasingly important, particularly because we've been in a state of play in terms of inflation and cost of living crisis, things like that. Costing is definitely important at the moment. So yeah, Lynn, is there anything you can add a little bit of meat on the bone in terms of that perspective?
May I take a run at that, if you don't mind?
Yes, Don, yeah, please do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn. But I think cost can be looked at in many different ways, right? There's cost of the product, but there's cost of mileage, right? How far can a coating last? How many can yields, right? And then there's efficiencies. Can they get more can yields per hour? So I don't think it's directly a price point. It's more about the overall efficiency of the overall cost of ownership.
No, that's great. That makes sense. Anyone else Lynn or Michael, anything else to add from in terms of cost pressures or cost consequences?
Yeah, I think Lynn had touched on the V70 technology to continue to along Don's point there. I think when can makers and customers look to move into the non-BPA, they've got to look at the whole picture. And I think the V70 is an excellent example of where when you look at the total cost of ownership between the performance of the coating, but also the runnability and the things that it allows the can makers to do and run more like they did in the epoxy days. I think those are important factors to take into account when looking at, again, the overall cost of ownership of the coatings.
That's great. So it probably leads us nicely into if you can just introduce the V70 concept in a little bit more detail. I know research that we've been doing here, it seems that you guys are very confident in terms of performance and the added value that it have for your customers. So yeah, just intrigued to learn a little bit more.
We needed to look for a new platform. Generally speaking, in regulatory, it makes our job very easy if we tell our chemists formulate within the box, if you will, of what's already listed in the regulations. And you can sometimes do that successfully and come up with a new innovative product. But we did not want to limit our chemists to that box. So what that meant was that we needed to say, you can look at everything, just come up with a best solution that performs the best, but we want to make sure that that it meets future regulations as much as possible, that it meets our um, stakeholders' needs, that we're listening to the voice of our customers and ultimately consumers. So we want this to be something that is very safe for its intended end use. And how do we do that in parallel with you developing new materials? So we came up with this safety by design process that we continue to evolve and we continue to refine as we are working in a very dynamic environment that's always changing. So what the process involves is for the very earliest stages of ideation, when our research and development technicians and chemists are beginning to develop something, they are talking to us about the molecules they are looking at. What chemicals are they looking at? Some of them might be materials that are well known, that there is a great deal of information in literature, toxicological information that we can look at. In the case of our V70, they came up with some molecules they were looking at that have not been used commercially anywhere in the world. So we screened those. We have toxicologists that can look at the chemical structures. They can do modeling. They can sort of predict how they will act toxicologically. Some of those materials we screened out. We thought they did not look like something we wanted to move forward with. But the molecule we ended up using, that was something that looked like it could have a lot of potential, not only with respect to performance, but also with respect to having a good toxicological profile. So we went through, if you envision safety by design as a funnel, this would be at the very top of it. And then as you move through the funnel, you're looking at what's out there in literature. You're looking at what's already in regulatory restrictions. If you're looking at something innovative, like in this example, we put many chemicals through this, but this is a good example because it's something that wasn't being used commercially, that was not a lot of information on. So we're looking at what's out there, and then if we can't find anything, we need to do some screening. We need to do some modeling. Maybe we do some very simple Petri dish type tox testing to see what it's looking at. And if it's passing through the funnel and at the same time our technical folks are getting good performance results, we continue to make our way down that path. And then ultimately, what we're looking at is how do we get this material cleared to use all over the globe in all these different regions, in Europe, in North America, in Latin America, in Asia. How do we get this chemical cleared for commercial use? and we know what we have to do. We have to get it cleared for food contact. We also have to get it cleared with respect to chemical inventory requirements like the EU REACH regulation. So to do that, there's standard toxicological testing that you need. There's standard analytical testing that you need, but there's also something layered on top of that. And there's a lot of other voices and stakeholders we need to listen to. uh, Non-governmental organizations, for example, they have concerns that are not always reflected by the regulatory agencies. So we talked to some of them. We got their opinions of what we were doing. We sent this material to third-party academic labs and asked them to look at it independently with no influence from us, and to let us know what they thought. All of that ended up being successful. It was found to be biologically differentiated, like our toxicologists predicted, from BPA and other bisphenols of concern. Some of this work was well above and beyond the regulations, but to provide our customers with a technology that we felt would stand the test of time, not only with respect to the regulations, but with respect to something that is acceptable to consumers, we felt that that was necessary. If we were investing this amount of resources in developing this material, it was worth it to invest a little more. So ultimately, what this resulted in was this product that we're very proud of. We're also very proud of the safety by design process. You know, aside from valPure V70, this is a process that we will continue to use and continue to evolve for any new innovations that we come up with, even simple reformulations of existing products. And I think what it's important for stakeholders and people that are not as technical in our industry to understand is the question that should be asked shouldn't be, what does this not contain? Does it not contain a bisphenol? Oh, well, then it must be safe. That's the wrong question to ask. You should ask, what does it contain? Has it been tested? And is it safe? You know, in the case of RV70, it's been tested almost more than anything else, and we've shown it to not have concerns, to be biologically differentiated, and that's important. Uh, you know, if I were a can manufacturer and I were looking to buy a product, I would not be saying, oh, well, you told me it doesn't have any bisphenol, and it's compliant with all of the regulations. So this is going to be what some might call safe. I think that that's not a comprehensive way to look at the situation. And I think that through the V70 development, our safety by design process and that development has demonstrated that both regulatory and performance challenges can be overcome through this sort of rigorous R&D methodologies, state-of-the-art chemical screening, and toxicological testing. We've importantly demonstrated that safe and sustainable solutions can be provided using these sorts of modern safety assessment methods, and that can lead to long-term packaging solutions that are safe, sustainable, and that can meet these stringent requirements for food contact materials, not just today, but in years to come.
That's a fantastic overview there. Sorry, Don. Yeah, did you want to add anything there?
I was just about to support Lynn, right? This is not just academic, right? There's 250 billion cans coated with our V70 technology, right? That is in commerce, right? So we've done the due diligence in our design work. We have the technology that's proven, and commercially we're successful with this technology.
So yes, basically the perfect product that we have here. And just in terms of Michael, just bringing you in here as well. how does the V70 compare to some of your competitors on the market? And is that something you want to perhaps portray, that you're obviously your aftermarket service and your level of expertise is kind of industry leading?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. Yeah, I think following up on a question you asked earlier about getting to that back to that epoxy performance. I think V70 is about the best example you can come up with. It is a non-BPA epoxy, and some of the benefits that epoxy has, such as flexibility and the great corrosion resistance, V70 does that. It's definitely giving us the best of both of those worlds, as well as ensuring that our customers and the can makers, they have great runnability with that product. So it definitely runs a lot more like epoxy. It gives us more the performance at film weights that people are more accustomed to with epoxy coatings, and it's been able to be an industry leading technology.
No, that's fantastic. No, thanks for the overview. I just want to move things on a little bit. I know we've been talking about obviously the valPure V70, but in terms of other technologies that you've got at the disposal, is there anything else that you can kind of share with us? I'm eager to learn a little bit more about kind of the personal care household market in the metal packaging sector. I assume that the V70 is not technology that can be transferred over to that market. I mean, it's just for the food and beverage sphere. Is that correct?
No, so the V70 is introduced in the personal care space, right?
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
That's
so the personal care space, right, is typically packaged in a monoblock or a three-piece aerosol or in tubes, right? So the monoblock in the tubes is aluminum, three-piece aerosol is a steel. Um, they use, again, some of the same technologies that we use in food and beverage. However, these formulations are modified to meet the different fabrication requirements and pack requirements that are used in household products or the personal care space, right? For example, packing hairspray or deodorants is a bit different than vegetables or a soft drink, right? But specific to V70, we've actually modified the formulation or designed a formulation that will work for that personal care space. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, we're building on the success within beverage. As Mike mentioned about runnability and application performance, that's some of the strengths of the V70 technology. So it runs like an epoxy, right? It's used over recycled aluminum. More and more monoblock makers and brands want to use recycled aluminum. So our V70 technologies is proven over 100% virgin aluminum and also 100% recycled aluminum and any mix in between. So that's one of the high values of the V70 technologies, along with its broad pack performance.
Thanks, Don.
Okay.
No, that clears things up, certainly from my perspective as well. So no, that's brilliant stuff. I just want to move things on just a tad in terms of Sherwin Williams as a whole. I know sustainability and other issues such as AI and subject matter such as that is really, really interesting for the industry. So I just wanted to maybe touch upon how Sherwin Williams are being sustainable itself, and what essentially what concepts you got on in the marketplace to ensure that you're obviously leading the way in kind of sustainable ethics. Because ultimately, as an industry, yes, we're talking about infinitely recyclable aluminium, and the fact that this industry is essentially one of the most sustainable that it is out there. But individual companies kind of need to fly the flag in terms of sustainability. So I'm just intrigued about what Sherwin Williams are doing to ensure they're compliant when it comes to targets to do a net zero and other issues.
Yeah, sure, Alex. I'll start to address that. Yeah, I think it's great that we're able to support and be part of the industry, both in food and beverage packaging, and also household products. If you look at aluminum and steel, I mean, those are among the two most recycled packaging substrates in the marketplace. So it's great to be part of that and supporting that. Specific to Sherwin Williams, we look at sustainability in four different pillars. The first would be what we call our product blueprinting, and we look at that sustainability from at the product level, and we're looking at that in terms of product innovation, how we develop products, and what the benefits of those products are. So we're really looking at the raw materials that we're putting into the products and how can we improve the sustainability there. We've created hundreds of LCAs, life cycle analysis on our products, driven by the raw materials, and looking at ways how we can improve that. The other side of that is and Lynn touched on this, how do we provide solutions that are going to be out there in the marketplace for many years that are going to stand the test of time? And I think that's an important part of sustainability too, because having solutions that customers and brands can rely on and not have to worry about changing, I think that's a big part of sustainability as well. Another pillar of our sustainability is our environmental footprint. What can we do on our own to reduce carbon emissions, energy consumption, water generation? Um, so we're doing things there. We really recently entered into a VPPA to introduce quite a bit of renewable energy to the grid. So we're doing things. We have our goals to reduce our carbon footprint, reduce our energy consumption, and working towards those. Another aspect, or I'll call it our third pillar of sustainability, is our social imprint. So it's really about people and really promoting the well-being of people within our culture here at Sherwin Williams. Global diversity is very important. We've increased our management trainee representation among both women and underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. And so, a big part of sustainability we do believe is that let's make sure that people are an important part of that. And then finally, the last piece of that would be our governance and ethics. Making sure we're maintaining our business, in accordance with high standards and ethics, and in terms of business integrity. So we've got pretty structured approach to sustainability, and we're making sure we're targeting all four areas of that, Alex.
That's great, and you kind of leads
Can I answer that?
nicely. Don, yeah, sorry, did you want to add something there?
I'm sorry, I keep feeling I'm interrupting, but yeah, but I do want to add to Mike, Mike's response there, because in addition to that, we have a library of life cycle analysis, right, and we have approvals with cradle to cradle. So at the product level, we're giving our customers and brands the information that they need to understand our sustainability position and help them articulate the value of their decision making when they choose our coating.
That's great. And I just want to touch upon, Mike, something you said there about in terms of obviously recruitment, next generation of professionals, ensuring you have a diverse workforce. I know the generation of young people now seem to move jobs every kind of 3 or 4 years, and not like my father's generation who tend to stay in one industry for their whole career. So is that something that Sherwin Williams are kind of mindful of? And is that something that you're trying to invest in the next kind of generation of talent? And once you have that talent, is it difficult to keep hold of them in this day and age? And is that something as a company you guys are mindful of in terms of, we mentioned sustainability, and I suppose it's making sure you have a sustainable workforce for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. I mean, recruiting, we're always looking to recruit the best talented people out there, but it's also absolutely a priority we develop them. We develop that talent, and we maintain that talent. We have structured management trainee programs, I know both at our paint stores group, but also within all the levels within our performance coatings group as well. And so we're constantly investing in our people with that. We've recently launched a Create Your Possible, which is a framework within Sherwin. Really, it's about not just about career opportunities, but really, making sure people are aware and utilizing the benefits with our company across their life, their career, and really making connections within Sherwin to give them the best possible opportunities.
That's great. And just concluding things here, I'm quite kind of eager to hear a little bit more from you guys in terms of your customers. Is there? It's probably a nice opportunity. I know that you're probably going to get some of your customers, even some of your competitors here listening to this episode. So we're hopefully getting some good traction here. But in terms of kind of misconceptions from your customers, is there anything that gets flagged kind of time after time that perhaps you'd like to set the record straight, or is there anything else that we've been talking about here that perhaps needs to get re-emphasized in terms of how the industry evolves? I know we're in for some significant changes in the next kind of 5, 10, 15 years with the likes of AI and other kind of other new forms of technology, which is going to really revolutionize the industry. So just curious to get your take on things about how potentially the industry will change, and if there's any kind of misunderstandings currently.
Don touched on it earlier. I just want to reemphasize one of the points, though. I think, when we look at technologies, I think coatings are so integral into the can making process. There's a lot that goes on. Once the metal's coated and the cans are fabricated, or even applied after the cans are fabricated, there's so much that the coatings influence in terms of not just the performance of whether or not the coating can hold the product that's in the can, but how those cans are fabricated. And I think, when we look at the benefits of some of these technologies we talked about, it really benefits. We're looking at the total cost of ownership, and how can this coating benefit maker and make their make their processes easier and better. And so I think it's important that can makers look at, and the industry look at, the whole picture of what that looks like, and not just the cost per gallon, but I think it needs to be well understood. What does this coating do for me um, on the whole? So I think that's an important factor to keep in mind when looking at and evaluating coatings.
That's great. And Lynn, did you have anything to add there as well?
The only thing that I would add, it's a little bit different than what Mike said, but when you're looking at all of this complicated emerging legislation, I know that many of our customers look to us for help in educating them on what's going on and how our products fit into that. And I believe that they found that to be very beneficial, and that's been something that we've used, just meetings with them, offering them, interpretations of these sorts of things to help give them that clarity.
That's great. And just to conclude things here from my perspective, I know you've obviously got the technology in place, the V70, which is very exciting. What does the future hold though? Is it a case of just not necessarily resting on your laurels, but continuing the excellence there, or are you guys looking to implement new technologies all the time? Is it always a fast moving pace that you need to keep up with legislations, and you can't necessarily just stand still, because if you're standing still, then you're not going anywhere as a business. So I'm just intrigued what happens now once technology is successful in the marketplace, things are going well, customers are happy. What happens next? Really, I'm just always been intrigued by kind of successful technologies. Like, is it just a case of onto the next thing, or developing what you've got? I just thought we'd kind of conclude on that point.
So I think we're always innovating. I think the name of the game is to have a solution and differentiate yourself in the marketplace, and really ultimately give the market a solution that helps them be more efficient, more cost effective. So, there's things that we're working on that really we think can be game changers. So we're always looking to innovate.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's that classic, I think it's Tiger Woods quote, wasn't it? If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So you always need to be moving forward.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Don, and I think the other aspect that will continue to drive innovation is sustainability that we touched on earlier. Everyone's looking, how can we become more sustainable, and we're looking to play our part in that with continued innovating products.
That's great. Now it's been a really interesting segment here, and I'm certainly learned a lot myself, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. It's certainly a complex topic, but thank you guys for making it straightforward for the layman. It's been great, but there's been some great nuggets of information there, and it's good to see that the industry is thriving, and wish you well for the future. So I appreciate your time, and it'll be great to catch up again in a few months' time to see how things develop. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks very much.